Hello. We are going to delve into the use of the command line here. This is a pretty important skill, I think, to cover just because it does seem to be the case that a lot of industries are still looking for students with the ability to operate as a command line. And even though there are some really convenient tools out there that let you kind of skip through it, it's really worth having the skill set so that when you are presented with an interface that you're not used to, you can adapt and still make use of it as quickly as possible. So we're going to do a little bit of practice here, just quickly navigating through, making some manipulations and checking out a few other things in Linux. Now, you have access to Linux, it turns out, via the Jupyter Lab website. So up to this point in the course, everything we've been doing has been through these notebooks, but we're actually going to check out something different in the launcher, which is the terminal. So when you click on terminal, you can see it opens up a thing here. This is basically just a thing so that it knows how to separate my session from yours. But if you type in some commands, you can manipulate the terminal, unsurprisingly. Have it go to places, navigate from place to place. And anytime that I enter a terminal, almost by kind of instinct, my first thing I like to type in is ls. ls lists everything that's in the current directory and reminds me, here is where I am, and here's what I have available to me. Now, right now, the directory that I'm in is also the same one that I've opened over on the side here. And if I go, for instance, to my work folder, if I close this and I open a new terminal, it actually will open that folder inside the terminal. But you don't want to do this for every single folder you have to go through. That's going to be a little bit inconvenient. So I'm going to show you how to actually go through directories. And the exercise specifically says, using the terminal, go from your home directory to the public folder for the lecture where this exercise is going to be, then go back. Now, I haven't done the folder for this lecture exercise, but we'll just go to a folder there anyway. So we got public here. So to change directory, we type cd, change directory, and then we choose what we want to go to. So we want to go to public, and now we are inside of it as indicated by the squiggle / public right here. And now when I type ls, you can see here are all of the folders that are available to me in the public directory. Let's say I want to go to lecture 1. Now it's also important to make sure you put the right case, because if I don't, it'll be confused and say, hey, there's no such thing as LEC001. And it's because it is case sensitive. If you are like me and are also lazy, sometimes you might actually just want to use the tab key to shortcut. So if I wanted to go to notes, I don't actually have to type all the notes. I can just type N and hit tab. It'll autocomplete for me because it knows that the only thing that starts with a capital N is notes. Now I want to go to 001. And here are all the lectures and such. And now, great, okay, I've gone to, I can go to a lecture. We'll go to the first one. Now, here's another thing that might mess you up. Let's say I try to go to lecture 1A. It says too many arguments. What's going on? Something is weird here. And you'll notice when it actually names all of the folders here, you might notice that all of them actually have quotations around them. And that's because in the command line, every individual word that you have here is represented as a separate object by the command line, meaning that when I type change directory, it thinks I'm trying to change directory to lecture and also to pass some parameter 1A. And it says, well, what parameter is that? You're only supposed to give me one parameter. It's very confused. So if I actually want to go to lecture 1A, I need to go cd space, and I think I can do lecture 1A like this, should work. Yep, and then here's the notebook from the first lecture. If I want to go back a directory, which is going to be the last part of this exercise, I can go cd space dot dot to go backwards. And I'll do that just a couple more times. And in fact, if I want to actually do it twice, because I know I want to go back into the public directory and then back again to my root directory, I can actually specify the path, the steps that I want to take to get to the directory that I'm heading to. So I want to go back and then back again. So I go back with dot dot, / indicates I've now entered a new folder, and then back again. And now I'm actually at my original starting point. You can do this in the reverse as well. I can go change to public, from public go to lecture 1, from there go to, let's say, lecture 2B for fun. And look, it took me all the way there in a single command. So you can, decide exactly what's most convenient for you. But I just want to go back to my home directory because I think that's what it said to do. And that completes part 1. Okay, For part two, we're going to navigate to my work folder, make a folder inside of it called 6A exercise 2. I guess we'll do one step at a time. I'm probably going to forget all the steps that are here. So go to my work folder, make a folder inside called 6A exercise 2. Easy enough. Okay, so go to my work folder. Here's my work folder. I got a couple files in here. You can see they're color coded to be a little different. So here are files. And then here are some old resources. I'm gonna make a new folder. So to make a new folder, I can do mkdir, make a directory. And it's supposed to be called, what was it called again? 6A exercise 2. I'm gonna copy it, and I'm gonna paste. It should work, paste. Okay, maybe I can't paste. It doesn't quite copy correctly. Oh, no, maybe it did. Okay, there we go. And now to verify it works, I'm gonna type ls, and hey look, there it is. I can also double check in my navigator by going to work, and I can see, hey look, there it is. Okay, now let's go look at the next step. In my work folder, make a file, then move it into 6A exercise 2. Okay, so let's make a file. To make an empty file, you can just say touch. Essentially says, make a file that's empty and call it whatever you want. I'll call it my new file.txt just for fun. There it is, my new file. And I want to move it, I want to move my new file into 6A exercise 2. And again, only one of these starts with the letter 6, so I can just type 6, hit tab, and it quickly types everything in. And there we go. Now when I look at the files that are here, I can see that the my new file text is gone. And if I navigate into 6A, I can see that it's been placed inside. Great. Now, go to the public folder for this lecture. So I'll go to a public folder. Copy the file there to my root directory, and then remove it. Okay, so here's what we'll do. First, I want to go back to where I started. So back to work, back to home. Okay, here's my starting place. I want to go to public lecture 1. Let's go to the very first lecture. Sorry, lecture 1A. Okay, and I want to copy this. So if you're wondering why this weird thing looks like it is, so if you remember before, we've seen escape characters, right? The slash that you put before an N, if you want to go to a new line, for instance, you can actually escape a space if you want to specify a file name that happens to have a space in it. Like in this case, lecture1a.ipynb has a space in it. We want to make sure that the terminal recognizes as just one file. It's not a file called lecture and a file called 1a.ipynb. And using the escape character will do that. And I want to copy this to my home directory. So from where it is, which is where I am right now, I want to go back to lecture 1, back to public, back to home. And now I copied it, so it's still here. I can go back to lecture, back to public, back to home. In fact, you can actually see, look, it popped up on the left here. So clearly I did it correctly. And there it is. If I want to see what's in it, I also can use a command called cat. And it will actually print out the text representation of what's in that file. So you can see it's got some cells in it. I made it. It has, this is a comment inside of it. This is also a comment. It says hello world in there. A whole bunch of stuff. But if you're ever kind of curious about what's in a file, you can always type cat and do that. Now, this also made my screen really messy, and it might be the case that you don't want to have all this stuff in your terminal because you get sick of looking at it. You can just type clear, and now you're back to an empty screen. But it said finally to delete this file, and to delete it, it's pretty simple. Remove the file. Now, when I refresh, it is gone, and over here, it will no longer exist if I open it. All right. Okay. A simple program. So up to this point, everything has been Jupyter Notebooks, and obviously in real world, you're not always going to have Jupyter Notebooks. So we're going to start working with actual C++ files this time. We're going to take a notebook, make a CPP file that has all its code, include a main function, and get that started. So, okay. first of all, let's grab a notebook. Let's say, where's a nice notebook? This one's a bit long. Is there a shorter one? Okay, this one's pretty good. All right, so let me take a look at what's in here. Zoom out. So this one is the one where we were doing, which lecture was this? So this was lecture 2B. So we were doing loops then, right? Taking a program, initializing a large number to a small number, finding out what's divisible. So what we're gonna do is we wanna take all this and put it into not a notebook, but a CPP file. So I'm gonna leave it open here as a tab. And now, you have a couple options for if you wanna make a CPP file. One option is that you can actually use an editor that's inside of here. So one of these is called Vim. So if I'm gonna say Vim, I'm gonna make a new file.cpp. And this opens a text editor called Vim that a lot of computer scientists use. I personally hate it, so we're actually not going to use it. And if you ever find yourself trapped inside of here, I believe it's :Q enter to escape. Anything else may trap you inside of it, and you will be very sad. Let's not do that. Another one, if you are very curious, is Nano. Again, new file.cpp. And this is also another text editor. I find it a little more user-friendly, but again, it's also kind of clunky. Like, you do have access to some basic commands like cut and paste and stuff like that, but it still doesn't really offer us as much convenience as using a more graphical interface. To exit this one, all these commands here with the arrow just mean hold control, so control and X exits it. We won't do either of those for these videos or for the class. Typically what I'm actually going to do is wherever we're going to make this file, which in this case I want it to be in videos, make a new folder. This is week 6. I'm going to right click, and instead of making a new notebook, I'm just going to make a new file. However, the name of my new file is going to be, I guess this is exercise3.cpp. Now, this is just a regular text editor. There are some features that are helpful for us, like it will have some shortcuts and things. And some formatting, but overall, it's basically just a text editor. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of Visual Studio, so if you're used to using that, there might be some ways that you can get that going, but personally, I prefer to keep a very simple and clean editor here. Now, I want to take everything from this notebook and put it in a CPP file. So, first of all, I can copy the first block. It's just a comment, so there's nothing really to do. Then I have this block of code here, and now if I put this in here, the computer's gonna be kind of confused because it's wondering, when is this code actually supposed to be run? So, as it says in the question, there must be a main function, which is the beginning of the code that gets executed. So, I'm going to go int main is a function, open and close, and take all this and tab it over. And I also think there was, it wanted to print out my bank account, so I'll just add a print statement for that. So something that we're going to find out really quickly is that one of the reasons that it was handy to have Jupyter available to us was because we could put in an expression and it could just give us the value. At this point, we don't really have that luxury. Anything we want to be printed out needs to be done with printf or cout. So in this case, %d/n, my bank account. Let's put a /n here too to make it show up correctly. And there we have it. So this should be our code. Although we have not tested it, we will need to do that before we are satisfied. So let's do so. Compile and run the program. If there are errors, fix them. And when we're finished, we'll use a terminal command to remove the executable files. Let's go through all these. Compile and run my program. Okay, so how do I do that? Step number 1 is I need to actually get the computer to turn this into executable code. Notebooks have been doing this behind the scenes for us this whole course, but now we're kind of at a point where we actually need to explicitly tell the computer, hey, put all this into a series of instructions you can run. And the first thing it does for that is called compiling. So I need to open a new terminal. I'm shortcutting a little bit to jump into where my directory is, but from here, if I type ls, I can see here is my exercise. To compile, there's a couple ways you can do it. One is to do G++ -C and your file name. And it tells me that there is an error. What is the error? Printf was not declared in this scope. So unfortunately, this is because I didn't include a library I need that has access to printf. Normally Jupyter notebooks have these already. Turns out I'm not so lucky. I'm going to need to add this line of code. So let's fix that. Something I didn't need for Jupyter notebooks, but I do need here if I want to use printf. Try it again. Okay, nothing. It looks like nothing happened, but what actually happened if I check the files is now I have made an O file. O for output from the compiler. This is something that I want to actually turn into an executable file. Basically, the computer has said, okay, your code seems valid. We're ready to move further. So I can do G++ exercise3.o, and I want to turn it into, I want to give it a name. So I'm going to output this using space-o, and I want to turn this into my program. Okay, so now you can see I got my code, the object file, just means that it compiled okay, and then an executable called my program. If I try to type in my program, it's not going to be too happy. It's going to say, I don't know what that means. If you want to actually execute it, you need to do ./my program. Hey, look at that, and it runs. You don't have to do all of these steps. If you want a shortcut, you can just do G++ the exercise.cpp-o, my executable for fun. And you can see it still essentially skipped the middle step. The reason that you might want to do one at a time is because this is essentially telling the computer, okay, just do all of it. But sometimes you might, for instance, have a bunch of things you want to compile first before you actually build an executable. Maybe you're working with 1,000 CPP files in the future at some point. There is benefits to just looking at whether it compiles or not before you actually try to link them all together. In this course, we're only working with one file at a time, so you're probably fine to just G++, the name of your file. And in fact, you can actually not even include the -o part. If you just do G++ exercise3, if you look carefully, you can actually see it automatically assigned a name for the executable, a.out. And this is sort of the default name of anything that you compile using the terminal. So for the next few weeks of this course, most of our coding is going to be done using Linux, which is this operating system I'm working in here, and by compiling CPP files with G++, and we're going to leave the notebooks aside for at least a little bit. We might come back to them a bit later, but it's important to get some practice with how this stuff works. Now, I think that's all we're going to cover for this video. Next time, we're going to go over working more with files, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.